Hey guys, got a phone one for you today. Phone's been ringing off the hook this morning. Probably 20 phone calls and text messages. Hey Ryan, what happens if the president dies of COVID-19? Well, first of all, we have a plan for that, right? Mike Pence will be president until February when the new president is sworn in, right? Because the new president, should Trump lose the election, does not get sworn in until February. So what about this coming election? Well, if Trump dies in the next 30 days before the election, the Republican Party gets to choose another candidate. Sure, you won't have long to campaign and stuff, but that's just what you do, right? That's life. And so probably it's going to be Mike Pence if I had to guess. So we'll have the general election on November 3rd. What happens if we cast our votes on November 3rd and then a candidate dies between the general election and the electoral college vote? The funny thing is, the Washington Post put out an article about this back in August, but the article was focused around what happens if Joe Biden dies, because we all thought he was going to drop out or something would happen to him. And so if you'll get on the Washington Post, it's sometime in August, August 16th, you can look up a scholarly argument about what's going to happen, where they had legal scholars on there talking about the process. It's just ironic. They were talking about Joe Biden. But here we go. If a candidate, being the president or anybody else, dies between the general election and the electoral college vote, it is assumed, but not quite mandatory, that the electors from the states will go ahead and vote for the party that they were assigned to begin with. So if Trump wins Alabama and dies, Alabama's supposed to still vote for the Republican candidate. Can electors cross over? Yes. We have the case of faithless electors many times in the past. In fact, 1872, we're looking at this very same situation. It's Grant versus Horace Greeley. And Greeley will die between the general election and the electoral college. What happens was we expected the electors to vote for Greeley's party, but what happened in reality is 4 who were committed to voting for Greeley's party swapped over and voted for someone else for president, and 8 of them cast votes for a different vice president than the one Horace Greeley had chosen. So we call these faithless electors. Grant ends up winning, and the rest is history, right? Could that happen this time? Well, the only other time we've had more than one faithless elector was 2016 with Hillary Clinton's Vote for Me Anyway campaign. We had several people, and we've talked about this in a past video, who refused to cast their votes for the people the state chose. A lawsuit came around, and the Supreme Court settled this lawsuit this year. Chiaffola versus Washington. And the Supreme Court ruled that if a state has a law that says the elector is bound by that and must vote for the party that wins the state, then they can enforce that and force the person to cast their vote for that party, whether they like the person or not. But each state chooses their electors and their electoral methodology. So the state's going to have to pass a law on their end. From the federal level, their hands are off. This is a power that falls to the states. Each state makes its own rules. All right, so what happens if the Electoral College casts their votes on December 14th and then Trump dies of COVID or Joe Biden or whatever? You're in luck. We have a plan for that because those electoral ballots are not counted until January 3rd. They sit there in a sealed envelope or sealed box until January 3rd. The president is not officially, the presidential election is not officially over until the ballots are counted by the House of Representatives on January 3rd, which is going to be the new incoming Congress. The ones you elected in November will be the ones counting the ballots in January. That way, if something goes wrong, the lamed up Congress is not picking the president on the way out the door. But this way, the president should represent the will of the people. So whatever party controls the House should win the presidential election, in theory and according to the Constitution. So let's say between December 14th and January 3rd, one of the candidates dies. Well, if it's obvious who was going to win, and we know that someone has a majority of the electoral votes, the Congress can go ahead and count them anyway, because it was the loser that died, not the winner, right? But if we're not sure who won, and it's neck and neck, kind of like Bush versus Gore, and we're waiting for that last ballot to drop, Congress can actually refuse to count votes for a dead person. And if the remaining candidates don't have a majority of the Electoral College, Congress can actually trigger a clause in the Constitution to where the House of Representatives will vote for the president, just like we did in 1800 with Thomas Jefferson versus Aaron Burr. You know how that turned out? That one got Hamilton shot. Yeah. And so the House of Representatives would choose the president, and the Senate would choose the vice president. God help us all if we get to that point. I hope this answers your questions. I hope it kind of gives you a little rest and comfort. We got a plan for that. There's nothing that can happen that's not covered in the Constitution. Y'all have a good day.